Welcome back to the channel, guys. I've been away, I think, for about 8 days since I did my last show, which I believe is the longest break I've had since doing this show in just over a year now. It's crazy to think it's been over a year since I've been doing this. So I'm really happy to be back. The weekend just gone, I was at the Awakening Expo in Blackpool, which was awesome. It was my first conference. I was there representing UAP Media UK. It was amazing. But that's another story. I want to get straight into this one because it's always an amazing conversation with my guest tonight. It's been about 10 months since he was last on the show. So a lot has happened in that time. So let's jump straight up into it. And let me welcome Mr. Steve Bassett. Steve, how are you?
Vinny, it's great to be with you. I hope everything is well on the other side of the pond.
It's good.
Congratulations to the Queen on her, centennium. Fantastic. All is well.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Just a quick message for the people in the live chat. If you do have any questions, I noticed some people have already dropped some in, and I've put them to one side for later. But as the show's going on, if you pop them in capital letters, that will help me see them clearly. And then again, I can put a little star next to them and ask them at the right relevant time. It may be during the interview, it may be towards the end, but that would be great and helpful for me. So, Steve, like I said, it's been 10 months since we spoke. We've had so many things happening in the community in that time. We had, towards the end of last year, the NDAA announced with for fiscal year 22, the Gillibrand Amendment, AOI MSG, and then into this year with the hearings. So let's jump back to last year with the announcement of the NDAA. How did that feel for you at that time?
I've been at this quite a while now, 26 years. So nothing that's happening is overwhelming. Okay. It's like knowing about your surprise birthday party 8 months in advance. But everything we're seeing now is the result of developments 5 years ago, which I can't believe it's been 5 years. The anniversary of which is coming up in a few months, and that is as a result of the efforts of certain individuals who were part of a new organization that was formed and announced in October of 2017, the To the Stars Academy. Some information was delivered to the New York Times that published 2 now famous historical articles on the 16th of December 2017 in the print, and then the next day online. Right, and these, of course, are the articles about a program which was nicknamed ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, but the actual formal name was OSAP. I don't want to go there, but OSAP will do. And then, of course, and most importantly, via Christopher Mellon, 3 gun camera footages of actual gun camera events, filmed events, were allowed out of the Pentagon, declassified, and allowed out of the Pentagon. The whole process of that was still a little unclear. I don't think any laws were violated, but I assure you they would not have made it out of the Pentagon and into the New York Times website without some pretty much understanding. And that changed everything. Since then, in 5 years, these gun camera clips, which is cameras in our F-18 warplanes that always are filming, except in, I expect, certain combat situations, all activities of these planes. In other words, they're on training missions. They want to have a record. If they go up to check out a bogey or an unidentified aerial phenomena, they film it, right? Always. They've been doing that for 70 years. All right. I don't know if you remember watching those old documentaries about World War II. You have all these shots of they're actually in battle, right? And they're showing film, right? Guess what? Those are gun cameras, meaning they call them gun cameras because the camera is sit in one of the gun pods on the plane instead of a gun, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Not all planes have them, but they do. Over the last 75 years, they have accumulated thousands of these. in just the United States alone. A lot of people don't know that, but the UK has a very large number of these film clips, right? Where the UK sends up a plane to check out a UAP. France, Canada, Australia, Russia, China, all of these countries. How many thousands of these 1, 2, 5, 8, 10, 20-minute quote clips, records of a UAP intercept are in the files of these countries? We don't know, but it is a big number. And you may say, well, if that's the case, why have only 3 been released to the public in 75 years? Because these countries know, certainly the United States and its allies and countries know, China knows, and Soviet Union and Russia know, that if they started releasing these things, the truth embargo would end. It would end it pretty quick, and therefore they have to remain in the vault. Now, this is something I've known for a very long time. The average citizen of most countries, they don't understand this. They know that such things are done, but they don't understand that the government has all this. So when the first 3 in history are released in December of 2017 and put up on the New York Times website, where since then they have been posted on news websites as part of news articles and God knows what all over the world, and been seen by, I don't know, X hundreds of millions of times, and maybe a billion, I don't know. That's kind of a significant change from the past. All right, and so everything starts then. And I've been following it as close as I could over the last 5 years, contributing as well as I could, and watching this whole issue mature into an issue and into a historical process appropriate to the importance of the subject, as opposed to everything prior to 2017, where it was not. And so what's happening now is what should have happened back in the 50s, or the 60s, certainly, definitely the 70s, 80s, absolutely, and definitely in the early 90s after World War II. It took another 30 years since the end of the Cold War. I said World War II, I meant the Cold War. For us finally to get to the place where we're now in a somewhat normal situation with respect to the reality of the extraterrestrial presence. So am I excited? No, not too much. Am I optimistic? Yes. Am I tired? Oh, you better believe it. So that's the answer to the question. Now, if you want to ask me any specifics about certain things, I'll be happy to give a picture. I don't want to get into the granular details here, because I think most of your audience is like, whatever, but I can definitely paint the picture that they need to have to really understand what's going on and where it's going.
Do you feel that towards when we saw the announcement of the NDAA last year, and then there was quite a few back and forths before it finally got passed, and during that time we saw the Pentagon jump in with this new organization, AOIMSG, which was very, it seemed a bit iffy at the timing, that they were still trying to control the narrative. Did you worry about that at all, or did you think it would all sort of play out how it should?
No. I have generally pretty good feelings about everything that's going on. But I'm not unsympathetic with the fact that many people who are in this issue, meaning they're actually involved in it in a direct way, they may have a podcast, they may be a researcher, they may be a journalist focusing on UAP. I understand why, and of course, social media, God bless it, which I'm on. Believe me, I can't build Twitter followers fast enough, right? Twitter, follow me, folks, follow me. I understand why they're viewing some of this with consternation. I don't have that problem, and the reason is simply this: I've been following it for 26 years, focused specifically, primarily, not on the phenomena, not on what do ETs look like and how do their craft run and all that, but rather the politics of it, the historical process, and how that's all playing out. And ultimately, for me, it's all about the truth embargo and ending that truth embargo. And so because of all that time, the context of what's happening now is relatively clear to me, but probably not to most people. And so with respect to these actions that you're referring to, this is just part of the normalization process that's going on. Meaning what? It reflects the fact that finally, really for the first time, though one can say back in 1968 and 1966, when two one-day hearings were held on Capitol Hill for a couple of witnesses to come on and talk about the phenomena, and then it was over, and the government's attitude is don't bother us ever again. This is now the first time there has been a normal interaction on this issue appropriate to the issue, which is to say that the Congress finally stepped in 2 years ago, and that happened. They formally stepped in when Marco Rubio, the chairman of our Senate Intel Committee, the most powerful, important committee, I think, in the U.S. Congress, put language in the appropriations bill. It was not in the enumerated section. It was in the comment section. So it was not a legal demand, but it was clearly yeah, you got to do this, calling for a report to be delivered 6 months after the signing of the bill, which ended up being a deadline of June 25, 2021.
Yeah.
Back to the Congress and to the public. And this was a big deal because that had never happened before, really. And so that was the beginning of the political engagement. Since then, there has been a back and forth between the Congress, the Senate, as well as the House Intel Committee, involving language in 3 different bills. And then the Department of Defense responded, and then the Congress responded, and it's been going back and forth, which is normal.
Yeah,
that's exactly the way things are supposed to be. All right. So now, in terms of what the Congress has done and what members of Congress have said, which is unprecedented, you have now on the record quite a few members of the U.S. Congress speaking directly to the issue or taking actual formal action. Marco Rubio, Senator. Kirsten Gillibrand, Senator. Mark Warner, Senator. Ruben Gallego, Congressman. Tim Burchett, Congressman. Andre Carson, Congressman. These are people that are taking formal actions and making direct statements about the UAP issue in just the last 2 years. All right. And so that is going on, and people are trying to understand why this, why that, why did they do this, why did the DOD do this, and for people that have some knowledge about this issue, as they watch this, they're scratching their head and going, that doesn't make sense, or right, they shouldn't have done that, or the appropriate reaction should be this, and so they're getting frustrated, and then of course, generally the people out there that really are following the issue, they may not be directly involved, but they want to know the truth. Their attitude is just tell us the truth, right? Just stop the silly fiddle faddling and back and forth. Just tell us the damn truth, right? What's your problem? I get it. Okay, so they're frustrated, they're confused. Well, my job is to solve all that for them, to put that at risk, to put them at ease, and allow them to go back to a nice, normal life while they follow this amazing process. That's my job. That's why I've given, in just the last 2 years alone, 100 and maybe 45 interviews, of which this is the latest. Okay. I'm looking forward to a larger audience. I'm working my way slowly back onto CNN and MSNBC and Fox News or whatever. I'm working there, not there yet, but I'll get there eventually. Okay. So what am I trying to say here? Here's what I'm trying to say. What everyone in this world is watching is not the United States or the UK or any other government suddenly figuring out or realizing, wait a minute, there's a phenomena going on and we don't fully understand it. And we probably should address that. We should do some appropriate things. We should set up a task force. We should talk to the press a little bit. We should take appropriate legislative action. We should conduct oversight. That is not what is going on. Okay. Let me be emphatically clear. I can't be any more clear than this. The United States government, the United Kingdom, France, Canada, Australia, Soviet Union, Russia, China, and throw in, most of the Germany. Every one of these countries has known that there is an extraterrestrial non-human phenomena underway since no later than 1947 or within a year or two of that. All right, let me repeat that. All of these countries. Now, by that, I don't mean every single person running around, in the government in the UK or anywhere else is, oh yeah, knows about this. No, I'm saying that there are people within every one of these governments who are fully aware of this. It's their job to know that. They are in the know. They are informed, and quite a few others within these governments who may not be, quote, on a need-to-know basis. They may not be involved in a specific program related to UAP or ET, but they figured it out, or they've been tipped off at a cocktail party by one of their close friends, right? So they know it, but that doesn't mean they're involved, and they're certainly not going to talk about it. Every one of those countries, and every one of those countries has in their secure vaults film of this phenomena taken from their defense airplanes designed to defend and check out all activity within their sovereign airspace. Every one of them has gun camera clips like the gimbal, like the Tic Tac in their vaults. Right, again, I want that to sink in to people. Okay, every one of them. Okay, so people are going, why is it? Why now? Why not much earlier? Simple. There has been, since the late 1940s, matured and developed in the early 1950s, fully institutionalized by the 1960s, absolutely solidly institutionalized as the Cold War develops, a policy of what I started calling in, I think, around 2000, a truth embargo, a formal national security-based policy that the acknowledgement of this issue formally would not happen, that efforts would be made to minimize the ability of journalists or academics, anybody with money, or just the general population to, quote, change that narrative or to infer otherwise would be taken, and that the formal acknowledgement of the subject would be institutionalized until, would be embargoed until such time as the governments felt it was appropriate for their citizens to know what they have known since the 1940s. That policy used to be referred to, still is occasionally, as the UFO cover-up. We've worked very hard to get away from that term. It's bad for two reasons. One, UFO is not what this is. Well, let me put it this way. UFO is a corrupted term, deliberately corrupted term, to symbolize the ridicule, the disdain, and the dismissal of this issue. And so if you want to talk UFOs, you might as well just leave the room, because nobody wants to hear what you have to say. So we had to get rid of that, and we finally successfully established UAP as the proper term. It means exactly the same thing. Cover-up was wrong, because the policy from the beginning was legal. Legal in the UK, legal in France, legal in Canada, legal in the United States. It was a legal national security policy. Just as legal as the reason why we don't give public tours of our active ICBM sites, meaning come on down and check it out, right? Here's where the launch stuff happens, and here is some, whatever. No, we don't do that. It was it was legal, and you do not cover up legal. And if you're trying to get the cooperation of the government to change their policy, it's best not to inappropriately criminalize them. Meaning, you all guys are criminals. You all should be in jail. You're operating a cover-up. Okay, no. And so it's truth embargo. That truth embargo is still in place, and it's that truth embargo that is coming to an end. And that therein lies the problem and the confusion and the upset and the irritation. Why? Okay. What we're seeing now is the process that is going to end the truth embargo. And that process is now not simply the efforts of the activists and disgruntled citizens and the researchers who figured out long ago that this is ET and they know the proof is piled up to the ceiling. No, this process now has the cooperation and involvement of our institutions, high-end journalists, academics, the Senate, the Congress, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Department of Defense. They're now involved in this too. Okay, well, good. All right, well, fine. Then let's just get it done. And let's just do it. Rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get it done. No. The process is complicated and difficult for a myriad of reasons. And the best way I can point that out is this. When, governments lie, we all know that. Governments do stupid stuff, and we all know that, right? Sometimes they do evil things, even when they're good governments, right? Democracy with moral standing and all that stuff. And then there's really awful countries that do evil stuff on a daily basis and can care less. We know that too, all right? So the situation now is the United States in particular, we're carrying that burden, but it's also the case for the UK and Brazil and Canada and China and all those other governments, but we're the one carrying the burden. We could go into the reasons for that, but we're basically at the point of the spear here, figuring this out, getting this done. When you have been lying to the world about probably the most important piece of information the world will ever receive, and you've been lying for 75 years, when you have taken significant measures to undermine the efforts of the public to get at the information, when you've done some things which probably are illegal, but ultimately will be justified under national security protocols, when you have been screwing around with reality at this level for that long, it's not like one day you can just say, sorry, so sorry, we didn't tell you. Yeah, it's like, it was national security. What can I say? Okay, it's like, that's what we had to do. Okay, so let's move on. Let's leave the past behind.
Does that not beg the question, though, with the way that things have been going in the last few years in the world, that surely Russia may well have come forward and said, well, we're going to be the ones to take the lead in this and disclose before the US?
Absolutely. When I say the process I'm referring to is the one that's going on now. Okay?
Right.
And it's now been going on for 5 years. That's the process.
Right.
There could technically be other parallel processes underway. Sure. I don't see them. I mean, there could be a process in Russia right now where we're seeing a back and forth and this coming out. No, what we're seeing is Russia trying to regain its glory that it once had under Peter the Great. We could see this, there could be a similar process in China, but no, they don't want to go there, and they're not going there. They're involved in other things. The UK, Canada, China. Okay, there is a little thing going on in Brazil. Okay, yeah. They actually had some testimony to their Senate. It was the first time that any witness on the nuclear weapons tampering phenomena testified before any legislative body. That was Robert Salas. He waited, 30 years for that. It should have been our Congress first, but it ended up being Brazil because we're a little slow and we have a little harder problem here. But really, the process is in the United States. So that's the one I'm referring to. At any time, another country could step in and say, excuse us, press, could you come over here, please? Yes. I'm Boris Johnson, and I actually got a haircut for this actual purpose, so that I would look very spiffy. I think all this dilly-dallying going on in the U.S. is rather constant, creating consternation. So I'm just going to resolve the issue. We are about to release to you 450 gun camera clips of our fine UK planes of this phenomena, right? Doing the kinds of things that you have been seeing lately all over the damn place. And I'm going to be able to now confirm to you that, yes, this is extraterrestrial. Those are not from, Portugal. And so I'm the Disclosure Prime Minister, okay? At any time, that could happen. if that starts to happen, I will love it. It will be fun to watch. Boris, how you doing? I hope things get better for you. I know you're having a rough time, but trust me, we're having a rough time here too. So, but I want to talk about the process underway here. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, what you're seeing is American institutions trying to now get out from under the 75-year truth embargo. And that is not, you can't simply do it. Somebody just can't walk forward and do it. It has to be done in a way that is going to be responsible, minimally destructive or disruptive. It would be nice if it made, people look good. Right? It'd be nice if the DoD kind of came out of it looking okay, or the Air Force is screwed, but the Navy. It would be nice if the Congress was looking good and members of Congress. It would be nice if the witnesses were able to come forward and all of this. And then it would be nice if the president could then come forward to make the confirmation. In this case, it would be Joseph Robinette Biden, in a way that is not too political and positive and constructive. That's what they're trying to do. And here is their dilemma. It's not easy. And in order to end this truth embargo, this huge lie, this big lie, and when I say big lie, you may be aware in the UK that we're dealing with a big lie in the United States right now, another big lie, and it's causing a significant amount of problems. In fact, at times, it is dominating the US media. It's that big. Okay, fine, whatever. Whatever one's opinion is about that, what I just said is true. But let me make it clear. The big lie regarding the reality of an extraterrestrial presence is way bigger than the current big lie, okay? Take that big lie, multiply it by about 500, and you're dealing with the level of lie that I'm talking about, all right? And so in order to get out from under this, they're going to have to lie some more. Right now, let me restate that. In other words, in order to get out from under the big lie, they're going to have to lie a little bit more, but to greater purpose. Now, some people, purists, are going to go, well, that's just not acceptable. Right? That is just not acceptable. We want the government to take the stand. We want it to take an oath. We want it to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We want that next week. Thank you very much. And let the consequences be damned. And the government is saying to those people, sorry, that's not the way it's going to happen. Okay? Right? Yeah, you're going to have to get real. This is the real world. All right. So what we're seeing is a lot of people, like members of Congress, names that I just gave earlier, like staffers and high-level people at the Pentagon, like witnesses, like operatives, like Luis Elizondo and Christopher Mellon, and so forth, and former members of the government, now retired, but with substantial gravitas and resume, like John Radcliffe and James Woolsey and Brennan and so forth, former CIA directors, national, Homeland Security directors, and so forth, stepping into the issue, academics like Avi Loeb stepping into the issue. Mm. What we're seeing is people trying to now do the right thing, but with limitations. All right. In other words, we're going to have to do this, but I can't say that. I've got a non-disclosure agreement regarding that. We can't go there. We can't do this now. It has to wait. We have to hedge our statements. We have to hedge our bets. And in fact, we're going to have to outright lie in order to get this done. Now, I'm okay with that. All right. I'm perfectly okay with that. The person who has done the most interviews on this subject as part of this process beyond anything anybody else has done, he's the front spokesman for this process, essentially. He may not be appointed, but he is the front spokesperson, is Luis Elizondo. I don't know if I could catch up with his podcast if I started watching him right now. He's done, I don't know, 10, 20, 30, 40, 70. And if you, and more than anybody else, if you listen or watch Lou taking these questions and going on these podcasts, you're seeing a constant dynamic in which he can only go so far. He can only say this. Sometimes he'll invoke the NDA. Sometimes he'll say, I really can't go there. And what he's saying, and he said many times, if you only knew everything that I knew, right? You know, and he even shouldn't say that. You know, in other words, he is basically a guy that wants the truth, and he wants it now. He's definitely a patriot. He's a hero, and he's going to get treated that way historically. But so he would like to just sit down and say, here's the scope. And he would be the disclosure former DIA guy. Well, that's not the way the world works. Disclosure cannot come from Luis Elizondo or Mellon or the Secretary of Defense or anybody else. It can only come from a head of state, as I define it, and as history will define it. Disclosure, capital D, the formal confirmation. Lou Elizondo cannot formally confirm the extraterrestrial presence, nor can any one of the witnesses, nor can Rubio or Gillibrand. The only person that can do that is Biden or Johnson or Trudeau or Macron or Putin or Xi Jinping. Only they can do it. And one of them will go first, unless they got together and coordinated a joint announcement, and how they can't even get together to decide whether they want to have a nuclear war or not. So it's going to be one person first. Okay. So they're having to move this forward and do it in a way that will succeed in getting the job done. And so all of the diversion, all of the little obfuscation, all of the inability to answer, and all of the, in some cases, outright mendacity, it's irritating to those in the know. It's frustrating to those in the know. It's generally frustrating to just everybody else, because why don't they just tell us, kind of thing. But it absolutely is necessary to get to disclosure. All right. And so, and what is the get to process? It's really not that complicated in its fundamental. The fundamental process is not that complicated. What we have always needed, and we've been trying to get for decades unsuccessfully, is for the best military witnesses, because this is basically, in its ground state, a national security issue. Nobody would deny that, right? For the best military witnesses to testify in front of the appropriate committees of Congress, who have oversight responsibility over our national security and actions of our agencies, a certain amount of oversight ability, okay, which they have not been exercising to the degree they should have, to testify before these committees at length under oath about a whole lot of events and evidence, some of which we have seen since 2017, and it's been continued to sort of come out, but we're seeing that develop. Believe me, it's a fraction of everything that's out there. Testify for days and days and days in open, public video, video coverage, interviews, so the whole world can watch it happen and see this evidence unfolded, accompanied by testimony, classified testimony in closed session with these same committees about information they cannot reveal publicly, but the committees can hear. And that to happen in an orderly fashion, under oath, and at some point, and it won't take very long, what the world will see will be sufficient to convince the world, whatever doubts I had about this being, I don't know, Chinese technology or some hidden species that's living in the center of the earth. No. This is off-world technology, multiple civilizations, been here since at least the 40s. We have craft. We have a lot of information about that. It's extraterrestrial. We're not alone in the universe, okay? And the moment the president, right, and I assure you, Biden knows there's an ET presence. Trust me on this. The president sees that, and the Congress sees that, and the DOD sees that. Then there will be a little back and forth, some conversations, some email exchanges, whatever the hell, and the president is going to come forward and confirm the ET presence. And that process won't take very long once it gets started. The run up to it is taking a long time, but once it gets started, and by the way, it technically got started on the 17th of May when the first hearing, short, modest, was held in front of a subcommittee of the House on May 17th, lasted about an hour and 10 minutes. Okay, the first such hearing on UAP since 1968, 54 years. That was the beginning. And the only reason that we didn't then start moving forward real quick is we have a few other issues here that we're dealing with, okay, which are sort of getting in the way. You know, the run up to World War III, insurrections, in massive investigations going on of a former president, on and on and on. This is just unfortunate timing, but it's not enough to ultimately indefinitely postpone this. This thing is going to get going again, and so that is what's going on. And I'll finish with this: if that is what they need to do, Steve, and you know that, why are you snitching on the process? Why are you going public and telling everybody that's what's going on? Why are you letting us know that they're having to do a lot of little white lies and play some games here in order to get this done? Aren't you ruining it for them? Oh no, that's not what's going on. Look, I'm not that big a deal. My saying these things right now, wherever the venue is not going to throw the issue up in the air. No, it's not. And so they're not worried about that. Neither am I. However, right, there is a very good reason why a reasonable number of people, thousands, hundreds of thousands, whatever, understand this. Understand that, yeah, that's what they have to do. So I understand. I get it. Right. Yeah. And the reason for that is that it's not in the best interest of the planet right now that everybody be taken in again by the solution as we have been by the problem. In other words, the more people that know that this is what they're trying to do, righteously trying to do the right thing and get it done, and having to go through these hoops and jump through these, over these the barriers, it's important. The more people that kind of know that, the less likely that this kind of necessary mendacity doesn't continue. All right. In other words, here is what's supposed to happen. The DOD and the Navy and the Congress and former members and academics and everything else need to play along with this somewhat contrived scenario in order to get the right thing done. But once the right thing is done, once the president has confirmed the extraterrestrial presence, the mendacity, the game playing, the charades, the kabuki theater, all of that needs to end. And after that, it's transparency, meaning, you want to know this? We cannot tell you. It is classified. Not we're going to dance around with you and your FOIAs for 8 or 9 years and then finally announce we can't find the files. You know, we either tell you the truth or we tell you we can't tell you the truth and we tell you why, right? And then and then again, there is an unveiling process where more and more previously classified information is coming out. There's open cooperation at the maximum level, maximum transparency. That it needs to happen the moment disclosure takes place. And there's going to be a temptation on the part of a lot of people that are going to be thinking like this, you know, we got away with the truth embargo itself for 75 years. You know, that was pretty cool. And then we were able to manipulate the whole ending of the truth embargo process and play some games and got that job done. That was pretty special. And so, okay, now the world knows we're not alone. But let's face it, we can play this thing some more. There's all kinds of things we can do, right? We can, you know, we can take that angle in this game and that charade or whatever, and we can make it easier for us in the post-disclosure world. No, that cannot happen. And so I'm trying to educate people to the fact that what you're seeing now is not straight up, but it's necessary. It's not the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but it is necessary to get to an absolute uh, event we must have, right? For the interest of the planet, and understand that. So be understanding. However, any efforts to continue this game this way after disclosure, you must be relentless in saying, look, I understood it, I get it, no more. And then lastly, there is this, right? Overall, the truth embargo and its entire production in all countries everywhere, but certainly in the United States, and I think the UK to a great extent, probably more than any other country. In order for it to be maintained for 70 years, it had to make a fool out of everybody.
Yeah.
We've all been made fools of. The researchers, the journalists, the academics, right? People actually in military services that have to walk out in front of cameras and utterly lie themselves to death there because they have no choice, right? It has made fools of us. It sent us off down blind alleys, running around and chasing our tail, stumbling around in the dark in the living room, smashing into furniture for 75 years. And I want to minimize the final solution, the end process now 5 years on. I want to minimize the degree that the final solution, which we must have, doesn't also make a fool of too many people. In other words, it's going to make a fool of a lot of people. It already is. There are a lot of people going on Twitter and raving, craving, and claiming this and claiming that, and then not too long from now, they're going to go, oh, gee, if I'd known that, I wouldn't have tweeted this, or man, I'm sorry, whatever, and they're going to feel like a fool.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm trying to mitigate that a little bit, and I'll talk to the biggest audience possible. This understanding of this process by a lot of people, I don't care how many, is not going to stop it. In fact, it may help it, because you get less blowback, less trolling, perhaps, as people become more understanding, and you go, okay, I get it, keep moving forward, as opposed to going online and blowing their brains out and having exploding heads over what this person said or why that didn't happen. It actually may help it to some degree. Now, this may be hubris on my part. There may be people over at the DOD saying, that son of a bitch, if he would just shut up and just go somewhere, take a vacation, we'll get this done, right? And we know what he wants. It's going to happen. So just, STUF. Right? But I'm hoping there's some over there that are going, hey, I get it. That's cool. That's cool, man. We're all going to cross the finish line together. We'll all get together, have drinks, share a meal, talk about the great old days and so forth. And that's what I hope will happen.
I like the sound of that, definitely. I suppose my next question is kind of a two-parter. We obviously had that first hearing with Moultrie and Bray as witnesses, and everyone since then is just screaming, when are we going to see the people that really are in the know? And then we hear people like Lou Elizondo say, you may see some familiar faces at the next hearings. So that's the first part of my question. Who do you think we might see? But the second part is, what are your thoughts on amnesty for people that may have been, part of the cover-up or even some criminal offenses to keep the cover-up in the past? Going forward, should they have amnesty?
First question is easy. The second one's more complex.
Okay.
We're going to have more hearings. Okay, I guarantee that. Right now, the January 6th hearings are underway, and they are a big deal. Trust me, very big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pure politics.
Sure.
Disclosure is political, but what's happening right now is political cubed.
Yeah.
They've had 5, I think. They're going to take a recess of a week, maybe 2. So the next one is going to be probably about a week into July, around there. It's highly unlikely that another committee, it'll either be one more subcommittee, House or Senate, or it'll be right to one of the Intel committees, House or Senate, Intelligence Committee, which are the big ones. These are really the critical ones. It's unlikely one of those can happen between now and then. It's not that they couldn't do it. I mean, you could have the January 6th hearing going on, which is not a standard hearing. It is not It is a special committee set up, and they're orchestrating that entire thing. But you could have that happening, and then over in another hearing room, you could literally have the witnesses testifying in front of the Senate Intel Committee at the same time. But that's not going to happen, because both of these are incredibly significant events, and you do not want them competing with each other. One of the most important things about hearings like this, whether it's a Watergate hearing, the Iran-Contra hearings, January 6 hearings, and certainly the disclosure hearing, is you want a huge audience. Transparency and the audience is pretty important. This isn't just standard business where you got nobody in the room and they're just doing some, hearing that they need to do on some housekeeping matter somewhere in the house in a room that most journalists never even knew existed. No. This is big. The first day of the January 6th hearings, they had 20 million people ultimately view, right? And it was on C-SPAN 2. Since then, they've gotten more coverage. Eventually, you're going to see probably a major one of these in which the audience may get up in the 40, 50 million range, and it's going to be covered everywhere. The disclosure hearings will almost certainly surpass that, meaning obviously the first one didn't, right? Sure. But it was broadcast on C-SPAN 2, and it was broadcast on YouTube and some other things.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the people watching the coming hearings will get in the 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 million range, and then much higher depending upon how much coverage is coming in from how much coverage from outside the U.S. This issue obviously is an absolutely international issue. There's no reason every country out there it wouldn't want their people to be watching these hearings live with whatever captions or translations. So it's going to be a huge number, and that's important. They want that, and so you want that the hearings on this cannot be competing with something else, and so we're not going to get anything until after the January 6th hearings settle down. Now, when? I don't think it's much longer. I think there'll be a few more. Once they start again, there may be a couple in quick succession, and I think we're going to then see indictments coming in from the Department of Justice. And once those indictments start, okay, that's going to be a big story, all right? No question. But it's also going to be an ugly story. And it's going to be very intense and very ugly. At that point, to resume the disclosure, what I call like the disclosure hearings, UAP hearings, will be possible because they'll be able to get the audience. They won't be competing. But also, these are going to be very positive in a way, very exciting, non-political hearings. I mean, these are going to be hearings of incredible global significance, which is exactly what the world is going to need as the ugliness of the last few years sort of finally starts getting resolved. All right. And then also, it would be nice if we were able to get the hearings done and get to disclosure this summer as early as possible, so that all of the people running for office here in the U.S., which is approximately 400, and at the national level, which is approximately 468 candidates, every one of them could be running in the post-disclosure world, meaning they're out campaigning, and the press ask them, well, candidate so-and-so, what is your take, and what is your position regarding the fact that it's just been confirmed to us by President Biden that this phenomenon is not human, it's extraterrestrial, we're not alone? I mean, how do you think we should deal with that? What are your views on it, and so forth? And so these people can literally, and they'll be able to do that. More importantly, that's a non-political question. I mean, it's not like, tell me, candidate, what is your view on the extraterrestrial question, so that I can then take that and use it to beat the crap out of you because I want the other woman or the guy to win. No, these are universal, powerful, non-political matters, and it'll give all of these candidates the opportunity to put that persona aside that they have to put up in order to somehow not only raise the millions of dollars they have to raise to even win the damn election, but get the votes necessary and put out all this nonsense in order to get the votes to win. They could just be honest and say what they think. We want that. That is really needed badly, and we can have that if we're willing to get the job done. If they don't get those hearings later this summer, and they don't happen until next year, think of it this way. The public will learn next year that there's an extraterrestrial presence. It will also learn that they could have told us last year. And so why did you delay it? That was a very political thing, President Biden, Senator Warner, right? Congressman Gallegos. That was a very political thing you did. You didn't give us a chance to have that in our knowledge base in order to do this election. Why'd you do that? And it's going to really demean the process. They're going to be angry as hell. And they're going to say, now we got all these members in Congress, right? And we don't know what the hell we think about this issue, right? And if we had known about this and been able to talk to them about this, we might have decided to vote for somebody else. And so this is what they're dealing with. I mean, public say, this is all nonsense. No, it's not. It's fundamental realpolitik, all right? So the government has a decision. Get this done before the election, which they can still do. The witnesses are ready to testify. My God. There's probably 100 military witnesses out there right now that if sent a plane ticket would get on it the next day and be in Washington to testify.
Yeah.
So that is what I hope will happen, and expect military witnesses only, or national security, meaning it could be civilian people from the DOD or whatever. No people like me, no UAP researchers, no members. I don't, maybe the head of MUFON or something, but I doubt that. It's going to be national security based. It's going to be Lou Elizondo's and Dietrich's and Fravers and Salas's and so forth. Yeah. That's the stuff that matters. They're not going to be getting into the woods and starting from scratch. Okay, witness, could you provide your perspective on everything that happened since 1947? No. It's going to be, what do you know about this? What do you know about that? What about this event? What about that event? And so forth. Did this happen? Did that happen? And then you may have witnesses turning up from the Pentagon, right, saying, Deputy Secretary of Intelligence, Defense for Intelligence, we understand you brought with you today 12 films regarding additional encounters with UAP taken from our defense planes. We're going to run some of those now, and then we'd like you to comment on it. It's going to be things like that. That's what to expect.
Wow.
The menu of witnesses that you would like to see will not expand, but it will expand until after disclosure. After disclosure, the range of potential witnesses that could come on the Hill will grow greatly, and you will see a much broader range of testimony, but that's in the post-disclosure world. That's after disclosure. Until then, think military witnesses, national defense witnesses only.
That's amazing. I love how confident you are, and there's very few times that you've ever been wrong in this subject, Steve, over the years. So I'm really happy to hear you say those things. Now we're getting up close.
The amnesty question. You got the amnesty. Don't let me forget that.
Amnesty okay. Let's go. Right? Yes.
Okay. This is complicated. I support, of course, the concept of amnesty, and I support the concept of truth and reconciliation.
Right.
But there's a lot of confusion out there about that. Technically, amnesty is about somebody who accidentally says something which violates a national security directive or an NDA or their clearance or what have you, which could happen. Okay. And theoretically, and not theoretically, but it could also be used to protect them about being forced to say something under oath publicly that in fact legally they shouldn't do. All right. But that doesn't quite properly describe the situation. Okay, here's the situation. Look, the people that are going to come forward to testify under oath, right? are not criminals. So by and large, I mean, it's highly unlikely that any of them are criminals. They're all basically people who have important things to say. They couldn't say them before. All right. And they will come up to the Hill and they will testify under oath. And because they've already taken an oath as a member of the national security structures or any of the services, this will be their second oath. And so they are going to tell the truth. Now, if any member of Congress, committee member, asks them about something that is in fact classified, that they are not supposed to discuss publicly, all they have to do is say, Congressperson, Senator, I can only speak to that in a classified session, and I'll be happy to do so. And of course, then they'll ask that same question in a classified session. There's no reason that any person is going to be forced. All right, now look, I don't care. You need to say this publicly. We're not going to go. No. Okay. And so they don't need amnesty for that. Right. They just don't need it. Okay. Now let's talk about truth and reconciliation. Truth and reconciliation, which would be a law that would have to be passed. The amnesty would also be a law, probably. Yeah, both of them would have to be legislated. Truth and reconciliation is about something else. It's about somebody, active or retired, who, in servicing the truth embargo, has committed illegal acts, either by order or freelanced. Meaning, okay, the truth embargo has got to be protected, and that's going on, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to deal with that. For instance, let's go all the way back to 1947. We have witnesses about how Army people, and pretty much Army people, maybe some civilian operatives from intelligence, were going around Roswell and threatening the hell out of some nice people in Roswell. Meaning, if you say anything about what you have seen regarding this event, we're going to take you and your family and on a one-way trip to the deep desert, okay? And you're not coming back. Some may view that as illegal, okay, and say that violated. No, you can't do that. It's illegal, and sergeant, whatever, you're going to have to be accountable for that. That's not going to be a problem because they're all dead. Okay, but you get my point. All right? Yeah. Legal, illegal, don't know. All right. However, there may be some instances where things were done not that long ago, which any reasonable person would consider absolutely illegal. And if it was freelance, meaning they weren't under orders, they took it in their own to do this, then they technically have committed an illegal act. However, okay, that said, what happened, we need to know about, right? It's important that we know about these things. Because we don't want to do this anymore. It's like, we really don't want to have any more embargoes like this. We don't want to go down this road any longer. It's already damaged the hell out of the government, undermined trust across the board, contributed to the chaos we have now, exposed us to, minimized our ability to deal with the nuclear issue, and on and on and on and on, right? We don't want to do that anymore. So we really want to hear from these people. And I don't think there's a lot of this. Much less than what was involved in the apartheid situation in South Africa, where you had a host of people that did awful things, and the new government wanted to know about it. And so with a lot of support by Desmond Tutu, ultimately they got a Truth and Reconciliation Act in South Africa. So a whole bunch of people could come forward and say, I did this, I did that, I did this, and it was not good, but they were not going to, their lives were going to continue. All right. They were reconciled, but they had to tell the whole truth. Okay. Yeah. There's not that many people here. There are maybe some. And so truth and reconciliation may be appropriate for them, but that'll be post-disclosure, not pre-disclosure. Okay. And so post-disclosure, I fully support truth and reconciliation legislation that will increase our ability to get everything we need to know about what the hell happened between 1947 and now, even if it involves some illegal acts that people would have a problem with if they are able to talk to us about that. Okay. With respect to amnesty, okay, I don't want amnesty prior to disclosure. Right. For one thing, I just don't think we need it prior to disclosure, running up to disclosure. All right. I think we can get all the testimony we need from people that haven't a care in the world about speaking in front of the Congress that will get the job done. If there are a few people that it's like, I really would rather not testify, there's some things there that I'm concerned about, they could just say, that's okay, Commander, it's all right, that's okay, we'll deal with that later. Okay, well, okay, oh, fine, but aren't you limiting? No, well, that's a very small limitation. However, talking about amnesty now, trying to go there just helps delay the process, one, but two, it sort of implies to the world that these people have got issues, right? We got to have amnesty for all these witnesses because, boy, they're all walking up to the hill with all these issues. In other words, it's intimidating, and it's really giving a false representation of the status of these witnesses, right? Almost none of them have any need for amnesty. And so talking about it is giving this indication, oh my God, right? We got to get amnesty because these people are compromised as hell. No, that is not the case. And so my position is this: we don't need amnesty, and let's don't talk about it unless we're talking about it as it may be needed in the post-disclosure world. As we start getting into the much more granular stuff, really getting down into the weeds to get the details so that we can understand everything that happened between 1947 and disclosure, there may be a number of people that would be nice if they had amnesty in case in the tumult of the post-disclosure world where people coming forward saying this, saying that, they, oh my goodness, screwed up, and I shouldn't have said that. And the DOD comes to him and says, boy, you really shouldn't have said that, and he said, I'm very, very sorry. But the DOD will say, okay, but don't worry, you're not going to have a problem because under the Amnesty Act, it's okay, right? It's all right, you're forgiven. So that's my view. You see how complicated this is?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I appreciate the chance to say that because, I'm hoping other people will share that because that is non-trivial. Remember, every one of these witnesses that are going to come forward, even though whether they want to or not, most of them want to, still are facing having to go and sit, like we're seeing witnesses right now on the Hill, sit in a chair, take an oath, and be seen by tens of millions of people talking about the most controversial issue in history. And so it's not like, they want to be there, but it's not going to be a walk in the park. And we don't want to do anything to make it any harder than it needs to be.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I never really looked at it in that respect with regards to amnesty, but you've made a very good point, and I hope that people pick up on that because it's certainly an interesting slant to what everyone thinks of amnesty as just, letting people speak freely, but it does give that impression that there is something wrong before they've even spoken. So yeah, I see where you're coming from. Now, listen, Steve, before we go, I want to read out a couple of great questions that I've got from the audience here. Elena Campbell asks, is this the year for World Disclosure Day, or do you think we're past that? But also, the curve of the paradigm clock seems akin to drifting closer to the singularity. So if you could just talk about the clock, that'd be interesting.
Well, the paradigm clock is something that I created a long time ago, and I managed it for a long time, and I've stopped managing it. Maybe I'll reset it. I think I want to try to bring that back to life a little bit. So I'll do that. I'll reset it real close to midnight, no question. So there's that. And then another thing that I'm going to bring back to life is World Disclosure Day, which I sort of made a thing a number of years ago. It has a website, and worlddisclosureday.org. I encourage people to go to it. I'm going to see if I can't bring it back to life. I think I've got about 5,000 people that emailed in using a form their support for it, and I think it's time to invigorate that.
Yes.
I set, because there's been a World UFO Day for some time. And as you know, it gets a lot of press. And recently it got some more press. And I think it's July the 4th or 5th. I think it's July the 4th. And that's fine. But my attitude about this, it's not about UFOs. It's about extraterrestrial presence. And the problem is ending the truth embargo. And so I created World Disclosure Day, which is meant to be the day to, quote, recognize the disclosure process.
Yeah.
Now, I set that day as July the 8th, as opposed to the 4th. The World UFO Day is kind of based on when the Roswell crash was engaged. right? I think kind of when they think it happened, we don't really know. But it's in that. It's about that. It's about the crash. World UFO Disclosure Day was set for a specific date, July 8th. And the reason I chose that date is July the 8th is the day, that evening, early evening, when Roger Ramey held the new press conference and made Jesse Marcel hold up a bunch of Reynolds wrap that had been in General Ramey's freezer, wrapped around some trout, and say, no, it was a weather balloon. Okay, to me, that is probably the best formal beginning of the truth embargo. That's when it really begins in some sort of a formal way. All right, and so I made it that. Now, World Disclosure Day ultimately is not going to be the July the 8th, though they still have a little time. It's going to be another date. And what I've said publicly in the past is the moment that happens, the day that the President of the United States discloses, say it's September 5, okay? I will immediately go to my site and change the World Disclosure Day to September 5, all right? But now that we're this close, I think I'm going to see if I can bring it to life again and get people thinking about that and saying, hey, this is another way to have some fun, support World Disclosure Day.
Yep.
So that's what's going on there. And I put the clock up many times as part of some posting that I'm doing on social media.
Yeah.
And that's about the race between disclosure and nuclear war. And I condensed the whole damn thing going on right now around the world to this. It's like, my geopolitics is basically this. Whatever else is going on, it's secondary to the fact that there's a race going on between the doomsday clock and the paradigm clock.
Yeah.
Doomsday clock, midnight, that's nuclear war. That's a bad thing. Midnight on the paradigm clock is disclosure. That's a good thing. All right. The doomsday clock is now the closest to midnight ever, 100 seconds. And that's not a trivial thing. This is the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists. And they posted it, and you can find their announcement about that. It went down a year ago, and all the reasons why they made it 100 seconds to midnight. And let me say this. I think it should be closer than that, but 100 seconds is close enough. All right. And we are dancing on the edge of the volcano with respect to nuclear war right now. I've talked about that a great deal. Most people are tired of hearing about it. I get it, but if the rockets fly, forgive me for being right. Now, in terms of the disclosure clock, again, we're close on that. And the equation, the math here is very simple. It's not hard to figure out. If the doomsday clock hits midnight first, the disclosure clock doesn't matter. Okay, yeah. It doesn't matter. Maybe the president will survive the nuclear war, and from a bunker somewhere under the Denver airport, they'll put out an announcement. So sorry, what happened up there? I know it's kind of rough on you people, though the bunker down here is rather quite nice. But yeah, there is an extraterrestrial presence. I'm sorry we didn't tell you sooner. Okay, who gives a shit? And so consequently, that's okay. But if the disclosure clock hits midnight first, I can make a realistic case. It may be the one thing that makes it possible to prevent the doomsday clock from ever striking midnight. Right, and that's the math. And if anybody doesn't get that math, email me and I'll explain it to you again. It's not complicated. One of those clocks is going to get to midnight first, I assure you. And it better be the disclosure clock. Now, if just because we get disclosure and we get midnight on the disclosure paradigm clock, paradigm clock, doesn't mean we can't still have nuclear war. Oh, we can. Yeah. We could have it. I'm just saying that I think we have a better chance of not having it, and anything that helps us not have it, that's a good thing. Okay, a very good thing. And so, if I ever get on CNN, that's the first thing I'm going to say. They're going to say, Steve, what's the weather out there? And I'm going to say, look, I'm going to explain to you the difference between the disclosure clock and the doomsday clock. And they go, what clock? What are you talking about? Cut that camera. Get this guy out of here.
Listen, let's jump on to, I've got a couple more questions before we wrap it up. So Strafe Wilson says he'd be interested in knowing what you think now about Dr. Stephen Greer, seeing as it seems that a lot of the UFO community have turned their backs on him.
Look, Dr. Stephen Greer has made enormous contributions to this field, going all the way back to the 80s. He had a lot of resources to begin with. He's put a ton of those into the effort. He's also raised a lot of money. His work in relation to disclosure is not going to be overlooked, and it's going to be historically important. And so, and every one of us have tried to do what we can, and all of us, our track record and what we've done. We've got people that like it and don't like it, right? Of course, I hope no one dislikes me. I hope everybody likes me. I mean, I'm one of those personalities. I hate it when somebody doesn't like me, and I want to call them up and say, "Look, what can we talk about here? Let's fix it." And so that's what's important. All right. Okay. So I'm more than comfortable in saying that, and it's true. And I think it'll be a little easier in the post-disclosure world for everyone in this field to arrive at a more proper appreciation for the contributions of everyone.
Yeah.
Look past their mistakes, and everyone's got them.
Yeah. And
we'll all move forward together in what I hope will be a new complete era in human history.
Absolutely. Yeah, couldn't agree more. The next question comes from John. He asks, which event in modern times do you think has the most compelling evidence that UFOs are extraterrestrial?
Okay. This is purely an opinion.
Sure.
Not a complicated question. But I like my answer, and you're going to be hearing me say this a lot. Without question, the most important evidence in terms of its confirmation power, its timing, right, and its overall significance to the issue and the disclosure process is Roswell.
Okay. The
crash of a non-human built vehicle piloted by non-humans who are not from Portugal or Minsk or anywhere on this planet, frankly. Well, maybe they were born here at one of their bases, but it's not like their ancestors were here. You know, they're from outside our solar system. It's been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and was proven by a huge amount of research. No issue, no case has been more researched than this. And the two researchers that particularly stand out, and I'm not diminishing any of the others, is Donald Schmitt and Thomas Carey. They wrote several books on Roswell, including The Witness to Roswell, which is the summum bonum of their work. They interviewed hundreds of witnesses, many of who are now dead. They got deathbed confessions. And if the person was dead, they interviewed their kids.
Yeah.
And forgive me. And so all I can say is, if you read Witness to Roswell, and maybe a couple of others, just as the main course and a couple of other side dishes.
Yeah.
If you are a reasonable person, you will get the fact that Roswell absolutely happened. And that's it. Once you get there, that's it. Case closed. But the most important thing that I add to that, and why this particular event is so critical, is that, guess what? The government knows all about Roswell, right? The Soviets knew about Roswell. The UK knew about Roswell, right? They all knew about Roswell. Maybe China came late to the game because China was going through a much more complex situation there, involving Korea and the war with the nationalists and all of that, and so they might have been distracted, but eventually they got the word. So you all know, right? So that's how bizarre this is. And so yeah, Roswell, and I can't say it enough. There are plenty of books out in there on Roswell. Read them all. A lot of them are on Kindle. You can read them for practically nothing. But if you're going to read one book on this subject, you just got to this subject because you opened up the paper and you saw that they're having a UAP hearing. What the hell is that? And you watch it and go, what is going on here? I got to get into this. Aside from the 80 billion things on the internet that you could go check out, go to Amazon.com, pull up Witness to Roswell on Kindle, and read that one book, and keep an open mind. And by the time you're finished that book, you're going to be going, holy mackerel. Some ETs crashed in 1947 in Roswell, and the government's known about it ever since. Okay, now I'm paying attention, right? give me, give me more. Okay, that's the best answer I got to that question. And all the other stuff that's happened and all the other research. I love you all, right? But yeah, I was asked that question. I had to answer it that way.
That's great. That's fair enough as well. Listen, Steve, you've been fantastic as always. One thing I will say is that when these next hearings happen, I have to have you back on almost immediately. So you look out for that email because it's coming.
Okay. Look, you're going to have me on sooner than that.
Yeah.
Because I have a kind of a big thing I'm about to announce. Okay. Very big thing. Yeah. So I'm going to want to come on your show right away.
Absolutely.
Tell everybody about it. Okay.
Yeah.
So just keep a slot open for let me see, end of July.
Perfect.
Okay? All right.
Perfect.
All right.
Well, listen,
Thanks,
thank you so much. If you just hang around, we'll say goodbye to everyone in the audience. Thank you so much for being here, all your questions and everything. I'm going to be back next Monday with Ronnie Vanette, who made a presentation at the Brazilian Senate hearings. So we're going to get right up into all of everything that happened in Brazil last week. For now, guys, thank you, and we will see you then. Take care. Goodbye.